Good day to everyone. Welcome to Language, Culture, and Society. Before we proceed to my presentation, please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell below. Every day, every hour, every minute, and every second, we need this in order for us to survive, to succeed, to build connection, and to maintain positive relationship with people. Can you guess what it is? Yes, you are right. It's language. So, what is language? Language is the method of human communication, either spoken or written, consisting of the use of words in a structured and conventional way. You have to remember, words are powerful. It can make you or break you. So, we must be careful in using them. Today, you will learn the functions of language. First function. Language is expressive. Verbal communication helps us meet various needs through our ability to express ourselves. In terms of instrumental needs, we use verbal communication to ask questions that provide us with specific information. We also use verbal communication to describe things, people, and ideas. It is also through our verbal expressions that our personal relationships are formed. At its essence, language is expressive. You have to know that verbal expressions help us communicate our observations, thoughts, feelings, and needs. Expressing observations. When we express observations, we report on the sensory information we are taking or have taken in. Expressing thoughts. When we express thoughts, we draw conclusions based on what we have experienced. In the perception process, this is similar to the interpretation step. We take various observations and evaluate and interpret them to assign them meaning or a conclusion, whereas our observations are based on sensory information, what we saw, what we read, what we heard. Thoughts are connected to our beliefs, what we think is true or false. Attitudes, what we like and dislike. And values, what we think is right, wrong, or good or bad. For example, when people say, I feel like you're too strict with your attendance policy, they are not really expressing a feeling, they are expressing a judgment about the other person or thought. Next, expressing feelings. When we express feelings, we communicate our emotions. Expressing feelings is a difficult part of a verbal communication because there are social norms about how, why, when, where, and to whom we express our emotions. Norms for emotional expression also vary based on nationality and other cultural identities and characteristics such as age and gender. Despite the fact that expressing feelings is more complicated than other forms of expression, emotion sharing is an important part of how we create social bonds and empathize with others, and it can be improved. In order to verbally express our emotions, it is important that we develop an emotional vocabulary. The more specific we can be when we are verbally communicating our emotions, the less ambiguous our emotions will be for the person decoding our message. As we expand our emotional vocabulary, we are able to convey the intensity of the emotion we're feeling, whether it is mild, moderate, or intense. For example, happy is mild, delighted is moderate, and ecstatic is intense. Ignored is mild, rejected is moderate, and abandoned is intense. That is according to Harji 2011. Now let us proceed to expressing needs. When we express needs, we are communicating in an instrumental way to help us get things done. Since we almost always know our needs more than others do, it's important for us to be able to convey those needs to others. Expressing needs can help us get a project done at work or help us navigate the changes of a long term romantic partnership. We have to realize that not expressing needs can lead to feelings of abandonment, frustration, or resentment. So, learn to express your needs freely. Second function of language. Language is powerful. The contemporary American philosopher David Abraham wrote, only if words are felt, bodily presences, like echoes of or waterfalls, can we understand the power of spoken language to influence, alter, and transform the perceptual world. This statement encapsulates many of the powerful features of language. Third, language expresses our identities. People call Mr. Christian Bautista the romantic balladeer, Miss Lani Misalucha the nightingale. Words or phrases like that express who they are and contribute to the impressions that others make of them. The power of language to express our identities varies depending on the origin of the label or the self chosen or other imposed and the context. People are usually comfortable with the language they use to describe their own identities, but may have issues with the labels others place on them. Fourth, Language affects our credibility. One of the goals of this presentation is to help you be more competent with your verbal communication. People make assumptions about your credibility based on how you speak and what you say. Even though we've learned that meaning is in people rather than words, and that the rules that govern verbal communication, like rules of grammar, are arbitrary, these norms still mean something. You don't have to be a perfect grammarian to be perceived as credible. You have to use language clearly and be accountable for what you say in order to be seen as trustworthy. Fifth, language is a means of control. Control is a word that has negative connotations, but our use of it here can be positive, neutral, or negative. Verbal communication can be used to reward and punish. We can offer verbal communication in the form of positive reinforcement to praise someone. We can withhold verbal communication or use it in a critical, aggressive, or hurtful way as a form of negative reinforcement. Directives are utterances that try to get another person to do something. They can range from a rather polite ask or request to a more forceful command or insist. Context informs when and how we express directives and how people respond to them. Verbal communication being directed at one person as a means of control, the way we talk creates overall climates of communication that may control many. Verbal communication characterized by empathy, understanding, respect, and honesty creates open climates that lead to more collaboration and more information exchange. Verbal communication that is controlling, deceitful, and vague creates a closed climate in which people are less willing to communicate and less trusting. So, when we are having a verbal communication, we should establish positive atmosphere. Sixth function of language is performative. Some language is actually more like an action than a packet of information, saying, I promise, I guarantee, or I pledge, does more than convey meaning. It communicates intent. Such utterances are called commissives, as they mean a speaker is committed to a certain course of action, according to Crystal 2005. Of course, promises can be broken and there can be consequences, but other verbal communication is granted official power that can guarantee action. Look at the two pictures. The two simple words, I do, can mean that a person has agreed to an oath before taking a witness stand or assuming the presidency. It can also mean that two people are now bound in a relationship recognized by the government and or a religious community. These two words, if said in the right context and in front of the right person, such as a judge or a reverend, bring with them obligations that cannot be undone without additional steps and potential negative repercussions. In that sense, language is much more than mere words. Judge words, perform actions ranging from holding someone in contempt of court to sentencing someone to death. Seventh function of language is fun. Word games have long been popular. Before words with friends, there was apples to apples, Boogle, Scrabble, and crossword puzzles. Writers, poets, and comedians have built careers on their ability to have fun with language and in turn share that fun with others. 8. Language is dynamic. Look at the picture. As we already learned, language is essentially limitless. We may create a one of a kind sentence combining words in new ways and never know it. Aside from the endless structural possibilities, words change meaning, and new words are created daily. 9. Language is relational. We use verbal communication to initiate, maintain, and terminate our interpersonal relationships. The first few exchanges with a potential romantic partner or friend help us size the other person up and figure out if we want to pursue a relationship or not. We then use verbal communication to remind others how we feel about them and to check in with them, engaging in relationship maintenance through language use. When negative feelings arrive and persist, or for many other reasons, we often use verbal communication to end a relationship. 10. Language can bring us together. Interpersonally, verbal communication is key to bringing people together and maintaining relationships, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Our use of words like I, you, we, our, and us affect our relationships. We language includes the words we, our, and us and can be used to promote a feeling of inclusiveness. I language can be useful when expressing thoughts, needs, and feelings because it leads us to own our expressions and avoid the tendency to mistakenly attribute the cause of our thoughts, needs, and feelings to others. Communicating emotions using I language may also facilitate emotion sharing by not making our conversational partner feel at fault or defensive. For example, instead of saying, "You're making me crazy," you could say, "I'm starting to feel really anxious because we can make a decision about this." Conversely, your language can lead people to become defensive and feel attacked, which could be divisive and result in feelings of interpersonal separation. Lastly, language can separate us. Whether it's criticism, teasing, or language differences, verbal communication can also lead to feelings of separation. Language differences alone do not present insurmountable barriers. We can learn other languages with time and effort. There are other people who can translate and serve as bridges across languages. And we can also communicate quite a lot non-verbally in the absence of linguistic compatibility. Now, answer this question. How the functions of language affect your daily communication in life? Comment below. With that, thank you so much.